With football season coming to a close, now all the heads turn to Syracuse men's basketball, and it hasn't been the easiest season for the Orange so far. After barely beating Group of 5 programs and losing big to non-conference opponents, the question is, where does Adrian Autry's crew go from here? Is a win against a big brand like Notre Dame what SU needs to turn the season around? Who knows? But what I do know is this Hoops edition of Cuse Countdown starts right now.
Welcome into our CitrusTV studios for this episode of Cuse Countdown. Adam Avin alongside Gino, Antimarino, and Luke Burgess, breaking down all things Syracuse and Notre Dame men's basketball. Game in South Bend on Saturday, guys. Should be a good one, but first, we got to take a look back at what happened this week. SU's most recent loss, Syracuse, played its worst game of the season on Tuesday, losing 96-70 against Tennessee in the SEC-ACC Challenge. Tennessee, the third best team in the nation, of course. Head coach Adrian Autry wasn't too pleased with his team's performance.
By all means, this is unacceptable performance. We have to and we will do better. This is not Syracuse basketball, and unfortunately, we have gotten off to a rough start, and we got to right the ship now. We got to put our heads down, roll up our sleeves, and continue to work and get ready for the next game. Questions?
Adrian Autry, not too happy there, guys.
Right the ship now? Where was this against Youngstown State? What are we doing?
Saying it's not Syracuse basketball. Gino, we'll start with you. What went wrong for the Orange in that game?
What went wrong? I think it would be a shorter list to say what went right. Syracuse was just not good. You look at the first half, they were up by 10, but that was because Tennessee was shooting under 20% from the field. Syracuse shot over 40% from three, which is good for Syracuse. Over 50% from the field in that first half as well. The fact that they were shooting that efficiently and still down by 10, Luke, is absolutely unacceptable. This is not a good Syracuse men's basketball team.
Well, the thing that stands out to me is Adrian Autry saying this is not Syracuse basketball. But
correct.
The reality is this is Syracuse basketball right now. There's really no way around that. I mean, look at these numbers. Outclassed in every single way by the number 1 team in the net, the number 3 team in the nation. 10 years ago, it didn't matter if it was the number 3 team in the nation. Syracuse basketball, a staff that Adrian Autry was a part of, was going to give you a game. That's simply not the case right now.
And look at those rebounds, 40-26. Adam, that just shows a lack of effort from the Orange, especially on the defensive side.
I mean, look, we know when you go against a team who's won every game by 15 points or more, it's going to be really difficult to win. Your chances of winning are already slim. And when you go into Rocky Top 2, one of the hardest places to play in college sports in general, it's going to be even harder. But even more difficult when you're without your best player, right? Just before that Tennessee game, SU announced starting guard and the team's leading scorer, J.J. Starling, was going to be out indefinitely after suffering an injury to his left hand. Obviously, we hope for a steady and a speedy recovery, but Luke, this is a huge loss for the Orange, and that's 20 points missing that they could have used against Tennessee.
Monumental. J.J. Starling is one of the best 2-point scorers driving the rim in all of college basketball, and he was off to a great start. He goes and has a career high in points
Great start.
against Youngstown State. He's been leading this team. He led the team in 3 of the 6 games that he played in terms of scoring, and he is a leader on the court, right? I know that we've talked about Jaquan Carlos being the primary ball handler on this team, but J.J. Starling has experience at this level. Jaquan Carlos transferring in from Hofstra. Starling was at Notre Dame before this. He came in last season. He was fairly productive throughout the year, not always super consistent, but this year he had settled into that role. Now you lose him. It's a big blow, Gino.
Yeah, you start off shaking your head, but he's the best player on the team, is he not?
Inconsistency at its finest. 12 points against Colgate. You have 27 against Texas Tech, 38 against Youngstown State. That's fantastic. But then you have 12 against Cornell. Listen, J.J. Starling has had excellent flashes of being that number 1 option. But how about you got to be more consistent if you want to be the top player. And I'll say this, it might not be as bad as you think. Syracuse needs to find its identity. And maybe losing its star player is maybe a blessing in disguise.
Gino, right now, according to college basketball analytics, J.J. Starling is in the 99th percentile of 2-point scorers in all of the NCAA. So for you to say that he's inconsistent and not the best player offensively on this team is crazy.
We can go numbers for numbers. I could go numbers too.
I don't want to argue with you. I'm going to use facts.
I love the debate here. You guys both bring a good point. He's the best player on the team, but you're right, Gino. There's other players on the team. Need to step up around him as well.
shooting against Cornell.
If J.J. Starling isn't consistent, those other players need to step up too. But with J.J. Starling out of the lineup now he's not playing. He's out of there. There are other players we got to look at that need to step up in J.J.'s absence. It was Lucas Taylor who got the start against the Vols, but it was Elijah Moore, the true freshman, who had a career-high 24 points off the bench. So, Gino, if you're looking at these guys, the other guards that can maybe get on the floor for Adrian Notre, is it one of those two, or is it somebody else?
I think it's definitely Elijah Moore. There's no question about it. Career high 24 points, played over 30 minutes in that game against Tennessee as well. Very efficient shooting the ball as well. Over 50% from field, as you see those numbers right there. Over 40% from three in the game as well. Elijah Moore just continues to improve. As you see, the last 2 games he's played, he just continues to get better, and as a result, will continue to get more minutes. Had 19 against Cornell, 8 against Texas Tech. But keep in mind, that is in order, right, in reverse order. So he just continues to improve from Texas Tech to Cornell and now to Tennessee. 3rd best team in the country as well, Luke. That's pretty impressive.
Moore is a good scorer, and he's developing.
Give me more Elijah Moore.
But he is a freshman. Adrian Notre is giving credit where credit is due for his players early in the year. Elijah Moore is not a good defender, and he cost the team a lot of points. The tone in the locker room after this game was that the defense needed to be better. He's not contributing in that end. Chris Bell is who needs to be better for me, because this guy is your expected sniper from the floor. He shot over 40% from 3 last year. He's down below 25% now. I mean, that's a monumental drop-off for a guy who was supposed to be the number 1 or number 2 option in this offense this year. So, sure, Chapa's contributions are great, but they're not going to be expected, and I don't think they're expected to be consistent. Chris Bell is expected to be consistent, and right now he hasn't been, and it is detrimental to the way that this team is
Absolutely.
started.
I would agree with you, Luke.
It's interesting. Elijah Moore's defense hasn't been that great. Chris Bell's defense has been really good, but he can't shoot the basketball now. So this team really
good might be a bit of a stretch,
yeah.
but he's been better.
Yeah, he's been better. but they got to figure it out. Elijah Moore with a couple of great performances over the past week. J.J. Starling, when he was on the floor in the lineup, shooting over 40% on the floor this season. But outside of these 2 guys, and we've been talking about Chris Bell a little bit, the shooting has been incredibly inconsistent, Luke. Syracuse needs to get the ball rolling on offense.
Yeah, it really has. From straightaway three-pointers, Syracuse is one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country, and it largely goes back to the fact, you look at the game against Cornell, Elijah Moore had 5 threes. Syracuse men's basketball had 5 made threes. He made all of them. Then again, against Tennessee, he had more than half of the made three-pointers. I don't want to harp on Chris Bell too much here, but he is the main guy who's getting the ball in these corner looks, catch and shoot situations, right? And he's not capitalizing, and that's why the numbers are bad.
Yeah.
Against Tennessee, there were spells of good defense or spells of good shooting, but there were also spells of really poor shooting. And the thing that gets to me is the poor shot selection.
Absolutely. And the Orange are the 3rd worst team in the ACC at shooting under 28% so far this season. Also, we got to talk about free throws. If we're going to talk about shooting, this is a team that is one of the worst teams, number 2 worst in the ACC in terms of shooting free throws, under 70%. That's terrible.
They've been
Ridiculous.
below 60% in big games multiple times this year.
Absolutely. And one of the guys that you talked about, Chris Bell being a leader, missed 0 for 3 on one of his trips to the free throw line against Tennessee. That can't happen.
No, it cannot happen. Scoring has definitely been a problem for Syracuse this year, guys, but an even bigger problem has been stopping the other team from scoring. I mean, too many problems to go around, but this has been a main point for Syracuse so far. They have the worst scoring defense in the ACC. They allow over 80 points per game. That is not manageable going forward. No. You know, what can Syracuse do on the defensive end to improve? Do they go back to the Jim Boeheim zone, guys?
To be honest with you, I think that maybe you need to go back to the zone, but in today's game, there's too many good three-point shooters. I just don't trust that Syracuse can run the zone efficiently, Luke. And you're looking at guys like Jaquan Carlos. There was a play against Tennessee where he was playing help defense, and I don't know why he did it, but the ball got kicked out to his man, and as he was shuffling over, got absolutely blown by. And that was the problem that Syracuse continues to have. The blow-bys and the giving up the rebounds, 40-26 in that game against Tennessee. 13 offensive boards that Tennessee had as well.
The biggest issue with the zone is that they can't rebound well out of it, and that's why it's struggling.
Sure.
In terms of the man-to-man, they just need to hustle more. Chris Bell is hanging his head after he misses a shot, not hustling back on defense. Autry's addressed it multiple times. The freshmen have not developed as defenders, so the defense is just poor. Yeah, it's got to be better in all facets.
Absolutely.
All right, Syracuse has things to figure out. We have more things to figure out. When we come back, we'll be breaking down this matchup from the Notre Dame side of things. Stay with us on Cuse Countdown. Welcome back to Cuse Countdown. Adam, Avin, Gino, Antimarino, and Luke Burgess talking Syracuse, Notre Dame men's hoops, and that's exactly where we start now. The Fighting Irish started off the year 4-0, looked good to start, but have lost 5 straight since, and similar to the Orange, have struggled against ranked opponents this year, lost both of their games to ranked opponents, and just lost their SEC-ACC challenge, like Syracuse, to Georgia. Guys, what's been wrong for them so far this year? Could it be just a personnel thing? But the schedule's been really hard, you know.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, yes, they've lost 5 in a row, but Luke, to be honest with you, this isn't that bad of a losing stretch. Yes, you lost to Elon, not a very good loss, but you also lost to a good Rutgers team, only by 1 in overtime. You fell to number 6 Houston by 11, which I know is not great, but Syracuse just got blown out to Tennessee. Then you also lose to number 21 Creighton by just 4. And yeah, the Georgia loss wasn't all that great. Notre Dame just had 48 points, as you can see on your screen right now. But also, keep in mind, the Bulldogs are a pretty good team. They allow the 3rd least amount of points in the SEC. Also, 8-1 overall record, 6-0 at home.
They're being forced into bad shots. Look, the three-point percentage is up. They've been taking a lot of threes. The field goal percentage is down. Upsets happen in terms of the game against Elon. The game that showed me that Notre Dame was not a good team in the ACC was the loss to Georgia. 21-point loss to a program that really isn't all that reputable. They're 7-1. I don't really buy it. I don't think
the
that
Bulldogs
they're
are
that good.
solid.
They'll be exposed in
right.
SEC play.
Right.
And they destroyed Notre Dame, arguably without its best player, still an issue.
Yeah, guys, Syracuse and Notre Dame, the similarities this year
They are very similar. I would agree, yeah.
We talked about J.J. Starling earlier in the show, Syracuse's best player who's out. Notre Dame starting guard, Marcus Burton, also hurt. And no matter the team, you lose your best player, it stings. Guys, how big of a loss is this for the Fighting Irish, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. Right, he hurt his knee against Rutgers. He had it landed on his lower leg. He was actually walking without crutches after the game. But what it's turned into is a couple of week-to-week type diagnoses. It's really the best case scenario, right? Because the worst case scenario is that he's out long-term with some type of MCL, ACL injury. Burton's going to be back. It sucks to lose your top scorer, but they have guys that can step up. I mean, they have 2 other starters averaging over 10 points a game. So
absolutely.
It's not like they can't figure this out offensively.
Absolutely, and we'll get to that in a second. But Burton, obviously one of the premier guys in the ACC, was the reigning ACC Rookie of the Year last year, averaging over 18 points a game, 4.5 rebounds a game this year. He's a big loss for Notre Dame.
A big loss for them, but like we said, with Syracuse, those players have to step up in J.J. Starling's place. And with Burton being out, we look at a couple of the other stars for this Notre Dame team who've stepped up in his place. Braden Shrewberry and Tay Davis both averaging around 15 points per game. Gino, being that lockdown defender that you are, what does because he's a baller, guys.
Sure.
What does Syracuse have to do on the defensive end to stop those two?
Well, to be honest with you, I've been really impressed by both those players that you said, Shrewsbury and Tay Davis, because they've both played really well this season. Shrewsbury with 15 points per game, Davis with 14 as well. But Davis is someone that I want to keep an eye on because he's someone that last season averaged less than 10 points a game. He had big games, 22 against number 6 Houston and 17 against number 21 Creighton. That's a guy to keep an eye on.
All 3 of these guys are getting expended minutes. Adam, you ask what can Syracuse do defensively to beat these guys, I guess you could say. They just need to be more tenacious. They have to hustle. I mean, it's not really a personnel thing for Notre Dame as much as it is an effort thing for Syracuse. The defense has just been atrocious this year, but they have the personnel to do it. I really believe that, and it hasn't shown on paper yet, but it can show. It's about, can you put in the effort when you're down, right? They can put in the effort when they're up, but if you're down to this Notre Dame team, which they likely will be at some point in the game, every game's been close, are they going to continue to be tenacious? Are you going to continue to generate steals? Syracuse is one of the worst teams in the country forcing turnovers.
Yeah, both Syracuse and Notre Dame struggling on the defensive end. Funny enough, they're actually 2 very good defensive rebounding teams. And as poor as SU's defense has been, they're actually one of the best teams in the country at not allowing second chance opportunities off defensive rebounds. They're getting the boards, and crashing the boards in this game is going to be really key for both teams, Luke, to make sure you're getting those second chance opportunities.
Right, there's not going to be a lot of them, and that is second chance points in all facets are going to be at a luxury. You can talk about the rebounds on the offensive glass. You could also talk about the turnovers. I just mentioned Syracuse does not force many turnovers whatsoever. So if you get a second chance point or a second chance opportunity, you got to capitalize in this game. That could easily decide the outcome in this one.
Absolutely, and Syracuse gave up 13 offensive boards against Tennessee. Luke, that just cannot happen. You talk about the rebounding and the effort levels. That's the biggest thing about Syracuse. But also, Notre Dame, in the last 4-game stretch, has won the rebounding battle in 3 of the last 4 games that they've lost. So, I mean, Notre Dame might not be great on paper, but in the last 4, not bad.
Yeah, guys, should be a battle all over the court between these two programs. But these two have been battling head-to-head for a century. In 1914, the Orangemen beat the Irishmen 50-14. Unfortunately, we don't have any footage for that game, so we're going to jump far ahead. Notre Dame and Syracuse have played at least once a year since 1996. The Cuse beat the Fighting Irish in the Big East tournament that year en route to a national championship appearance led by Jim Boeheim. Skip ahead to 2003. Remember Carmelo Anthony and the team that did win the national championship? Well, before that, number 12 SU defeated number 16 Notre Dame 92-88 in Syracuse. Thanks to a couple of tough buckets from Carmelo Anthony and Queeth Duaney, the Orange clinched a first-round bye in the Big East tournament. And, well, you know what happened after that. They lifted a trophy. Now back to present day. This game between Syracuse and Notre Dame is the 56th all-time matchup over the course of 100 years. The Orange have won 3 straight and 6 of the last 8 contests. Despite Syracuse's success in recent history, they're called the Fighting Irish for a reason, so don't count them out just yet. But how confident are Luke and Gino in the current Cuse squad to get the job done? Guess you're going to have to stick around to find out. We'll be right back on Cuse Countdown as we continue our favorite holiday tradition.
I don't remember how it started. Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Back on Cuse Countdown, Santa and his elves. Adam, Avin, Gino, Antimarino, and Luke Burgess talking Syracuse and Notre Dame. With this being the last CC of the semester, we want to wish everyone out there
I'm
happy
disappointed
holiday
that's
season.
how you see me. I'm
of
not
course.
gonna lie. It's one of your elves.
We're your
We're like the same
co-Santas.
I'll take
Sure.
It wasn't a height thing. It was a Santa hat thing versus no Santa hat thing.
That's
that was
fair.
the only
That's fair.
pun I could get. Anyways. All right, we're going to continue one of our favorite winter traditions here on Cuse Countdown. Cap or no cap? Get it? You see what I did there. Guys, I'm going to give you a statement about Syracuse men's basketball team, and you're going to either call cap, you're going to disagree, or no cap, you're going to agree. You got it?
The lingo these days.
All right, whatever. This one's a juicy one. All right, Syracuse, do they miss Judah Mintz, Gino?
I'm going to say that is no cap. Get this cap out of here. They miss Judah Mintz, Luke, because Syracuse needs that guy. And currently, they don't have it. Judah Mintz was that guy. You know how I know that? Head coach Adrian Autry said it himself. Assistant coach Alan Griffin also said it himself. Also, the eye test. This was a guy a couple seasons ago. We talked about that Notre Dame men's basketball team. A couple seasons ago, Judah Mintz had a layup game winner with 13 seconds left. Also, last season, you want to talk more current, 29 against Virginia Tech. Took them down in the Dome. That's a big game for Judah Mintz. He's their go-to guy. Now they don't have that role. Who's going to get the ball at the end of the game when it's close? That's up for debate.
Adrian Autry might be saying one thing, but the players on the team are saying another thing. Chris Bell made reference earlier this year. We're happy now that we can let this offense really flow and expand itself because Judah always had the ball last year. I'm leaving the cap on.
Oh,
they do
come on.
not miss Judah Mintz whatsoever because other players are getting a chance to score. And yeah, it hasn't worked out so well so far, but that's how growth works, right? Sometimes there's going to be some bumps in the road before you get to smooth sailing. Judah Mintz was averaging more than 20 points a game last year, and probably 15 or 16 of those a game were coming from the free throw line. So now that Syracuse can actually shoot the basketball from the floor, they're not missing Judah Mintz because guys want to get points on the board.
You mentioned growth. I mean, apparently we haven't done much of that since Adam called us his health. So.
All right. Well, you know what? I think you should put your hat on because I think you're trying to get out of where. Look, he has great luscious locks. All right, he's trying to put the hat on. Come on, they were playing all the game.
I had no cap. That's part of the game.
Well, now you got cap. All right.
Wait, we got to get the branding.
Yeah, sure. CitrusTV on YouTube. Anyways. All right, second statement that we got here. We talked about him a little bit earlier in the show. The best shooter on this team, supposedly, Judah Mintz brought a lot of points last year. Chris Bell, kind of that number 2 for a long part of last season. Is he going to figure it out, Luke? Because it's been a struggle so far.
I'm saying no cap. I'm taking it off and put it on the ground. The reason that he's going to figure it out, though, is not because he is doing the right things. It's because he will need to figure it out for this team to be even somewhat competitive down the stretch. And I think that it's a necessity thing where Adrian Autry is going to figure out a way to push the right buttons and get Chris Bell in the right mind state. Right now, he's clearly not. I mean, he's at probably the low point of his SU career at the moment. An expanded role, but he will figure it out because he has to. Syracuse basketball is still a big brand. Adrian Autry has proved himself to be a really good coach, I think, at times. He's going to find that next level with Chris Bell. That's why I say no cap.
I'm going to say cap. He doesn't figure it out. And you know why? It's because of his demeanor on the court. There's times on defense where he just kind of shakes his head. He's like a guy standing in mud, if you will. Minus 23 against Tennessee. Cap. I'm calling cap. But it's unacceptable, Luke, because you hit the nail on the head. He's supposed to be your leader, but when you mentioned the quote that he said after the game against Tennessee, who's going to step up in the scoring department now that J.J. Starling's out? And what does he say? Coach's decision. I mean, what kind of a leader says that? That's the guy that's supposed to be the go-to guy for this Syracuse team. In fact, I would say maybe even over J.J. Starling, but so far we have not seen it, and we need more consistency out of Chris Bell if we think that he's going to come back and be a good piece for the Syracuse team.
All right, well, Syracuse still trying to figure it out right now. Okay. Last year, they were, are you good?
Yeah.
All right, they were in the middle of the pack of the ACC last year. Syracuse figured it out down the stretch, had a couple of pretty important wins, but right now it feels like they're already starting off a little bit slower than they did last year and have to turn it up a little bit earlier. So, Gino, last question here. Syracuse finishes over 500 in the ACC.
I was close. I said no cap.
Oh.
I'm going to say it here.
You don't need it anymore.
I don't need it. Well, no. Don't disrespect them. Okay.
Oh.
Anyways, so here's why. Because there's some games left in the schedule that I think Syracuse can definitely take advantage of, but also the Orange have to figure things out, obviously, with head coach Adrian Autry. Last year, a couple losses. That's all right. He's a new coach, not really his guys. Luke, these are his guys. These are his recruits. These are his transfers. There's no excuse as to why the Orange have not bought in thus far into the season. He needs to take command, and I'm so tired of seeing him fed up in the press conference. I'm fed up, Luke. I want to see a good Syracuse team because they have the talent to do so. There's no doubt about it, but I think it's just going to take someone buying in and leading the charge. It's going to have to take Chris Bell, and that's why I said earlier that maybe J.J. Starling being out of the lineup is not the worst-case scenario because, like what Tony Stark said to Spider-Man, if you're nothing without the suit, you shouldn't have the suit at all. And that's what Syracuse needs to figure out moving down the stretch.
Unfortunately, no matter how many sayings you have, it doesn't equate to good basketball. I'm putting the hat on forwards this way for a full cap. Syracuse men's basketball right now has no chance to finish above 500, and J.J. Starling being out until mid to late January really solidified this for me. They don't have their lead scorer, and what are you going to do without him, right? The production against Tennessee, you saw it's going to be hard to replace. ACC, that's a gauntlet of a conference.
It is.
Yeah, sure, they got destroyed by the SEC in the challenge this week, but that is a tough conference to be competitive in. It's cap.
But
Syracuse doesn't have the talent at the moment
in
my eyes.
They just don't have the effort levels. That's where I would disagree. I think they do have the talent.
The cap is firmly on. It's tight, Gino.
It looks good.
Well,
looks good.
Gino's cap isn't on. We're going to see if Luke takes his off
but
later
a great
this
hat.
year. It's a great hat.
Get your merch.
CitrusTV.net. There you go.
Plug.
While I fill Gino and Luke's stockings with coal for their naughty takes, it'd be really nice if you stuck around for our few final minutes on Cuse Countdown. See what I did there? Stay with us. Our Cuse Countdown finale wraps up inside our Citrus TV studios. Adam, Gino, and Luke here with you. We've been talking Syracuse, Notre Dame men's basketball taking place later today. Guys, typically this would be the part in our show where we take a moment to look into the future of the team that we're covering. But instead, we got to talk about the future of this show. Because today is our friend Terrence Murphy's last show producing at Citrus TV. Terrence is so upset in the back there. I hear him yelling. Look, for those who don't know Terrence, he came down to the station later than most people, but quickly became the heart and soul of the station and this show. And he spent so much time here. He spent a year as an associate producer, a year as an executive producer. No one works harder than Terrence. He's the first one here. He's the last one to leave. Terrence is Cuse Countdown, guys. His catchphrase, CC Love, has been a trademark around here because he loves this show so much, and that has spread from the second that he stepped in the station. T, it's been truly an honor to work beside you, and I need to stop talking so I don't cry, but we know you're on to bigger and better things. You guys take it away from here because Terrence is awesome.
I mean, I wasn't really planning a speech, but Terrence, you are the best. No, I'm just kidding. Terrence, you've been a big friend of mine, man, since my freshman year. I remember coming down here and you being one of the first faces that I saw. And, we just hit it off right away. And ever since then, our friendship just continues to grow. And I know that I can always, riff with you about anything, specifically the Penguins and the Islanders rivalry. Penguins own the Islanders, by the way. You're never getting that back. But, Terrence.
Yeah, echo everything Gino said, Terrence. We really appreciate your hard work and always putting together a great show and helping us out so much behind the scenes. Really appreciate it.
Anyways,
best of luck.
Thanks, Terrence.
Thanks,
we love
Terrence.
you, dude.
We love you.
He definitely hated everything about that because he's one of the most humble people in the world. So let's at least honor him by giving out our keys to this game between Syracuse and Notre Dame, huh? Luke, what do the Orange have to do to get it done?
Syracuse has to play tenacious defense, Adam. It really is going to be about the tenacious D. They need it. And Syracuse just hasn't quite had the hustle getting back on the ball throughout this season so far. If they do that, they do it as a collective, they have a chance to win against Notre Dame on the road.
Syracuse needs to emulate Terrence Murphy because the Orange need leadership. That's what they need. They need someone to step up and be the guy, be the anchor. That was pretty good, right? I did that on the spot. I'm pretty impressed. But Syracuse, they need that guy. J.J. Starling is out. They need someone to step up and fill his shoes.
All right, guys, Syracuse, we're going to see if they can go on the road and get it done as they kick off ACC play. It should be a really exciting one there. Luke making the trip down. We're going to be there. Should be. Oh, we got one of our very own down there. But that's going to do it for Cuse Countdown in 2024. For Gino, Antimarino, Luke Burgess, our EP, Terrence Murphy, the whole CC crew, I'm Adam Avin saying enjoy the game and happy holidays.